whatever. Why am I bringing this up? Obviously, the world is much bigger than people expected, and along with this comes, I think of it as a virus that a lot of people have caught, and that is we want to go and see those places for ourselves. Initially, you have this globe, you know, okay, the rough size of the globe, but what's up here? There's no record of what's up here, especially by the Arctic. Nothing about the south, you know, the south, well, what do you call it? The Antarctic, right? The anti-Arctic. And all sorts of places that the Europeans at least didn't know about. And of course, the European discovery of all of these places are something that goes on with Columbus. Of course, Columbus today, we're in the United States, we see a lot of controversy over Columbus. Do we want to recognize Columbus as a hero? Well, we haven't tried to change Columbus, Ohio to a different name. We haven't changed the Washington District of Columbia, Washington, D.C., to not honor Columbus. There's lots of places that are still named after him. Are we going to change those? I don't see anything attempting to do that. We have a controversy right here in Anchorage, of course. If you've been down to the point in Anchorage, you see that statue of who? Who's the statue of? Anybody? Captain Cook, right? Yes? No? Which statue are you thinking of? Martin Luther King Jr.?
We have like a Columbus statue. Like maybe got $1. I could be wrong.
I don't think we have a Columbus, but we do have Captain Cook. And the reason it's Captain Cook and not Columbus is Captain Cook was the European from Europe, not Russia, who was the one that named a lot of things here. The Turnagain Arm became called that apparently because he sent one of his lieutenants in a boat to go down, and they were looking for a passageway across northern America to try to get to the Atlantic that would cut a lot of the time off. Obviously, they never really found something of that sort, especially because of the ice and so on, although it's melting now. But Captain Cook was the one that did that here. The statue is controversial because he's looking out to sea. Well, there's about 11 of those statues. I'm not sure exactly how many there are. There was one in Hawaii that I think got swept away by the erosion of the beach, but I'm not sure about that. But there's one in Australia. There's one in his original hometown in England that, in fact, the model for the statue was from that model. And they always put them looking out to the ocean because that was Captain Cook. His interest was in the ocean, going out. So it's not like a lot of people think that's an insult to Anchorage. He's not even looking at Anchorage. He's looking out. Well, that's because his love was out in the ocean, right? But that's why we have a statue of Captain Cook. But yes, it is controversial because, of course, all the same kinds of things that cause that kind of controversy and all sorts of other things. But, and Captain Cook is later, of course. In any case, Columbus caused a remapping of the world, and I love Peter Sloterdijk's view of that, and that's where I get the idea that it's almost like a virus. It didn't really hit me until I read one of his articles where he pointed this out, but Europeans started going all over, and they wanted to see the world and map out what was there. You see that even with the kind of thing that Thomas Jefferson sent Clark and Clark and who? Lewis and Clark. That's why I couldn't think of it, because you always see Lewis first. I screwed up. But Lewis and Clark, let's go find out and map. Go map all this, which is full of people who all knew where everything was. But the thing is, they're mapping it down for themselves and naming things that have names. All the places up here had names, and yet, of course, people started giving them names like McKinley right? Which lately we just changed back to Denali, etc. But so that's a whole nother thing that's absolutely changing the European mindset. That's very upsetting, exciting, but upsetting, that the world is a bigger place and that there's all this stuff to discover and so on. So awful lot of things up in the air that made things anxious for Europeans. And so Descartes decides he's going to figure out, oh gosh, I should obviously talk about it. We've talked about Galileo before, but keep in mind that he's a contemporary now of Descartes. In fact, Descartes is writing a book on the traits of the moon, and as he's writing the book, he ends up having to go to, not jail, but to house arrest because of his views on whether the earth goes around the sun or the sun goes around the earth, right? And as a result of that, Descartes stops writing his book and isn't going to publish it because, of course, he's writing that book obviously going to take the same point of view as Galileo, and if Galileo gets thrown into house arrest for his views, Descartes might end up in the same kind of situation. And Descartes clearly didn't want to end up being penalized for publishing views that were controversial. So he didn't. So there's that connection. By the way, Thomas Hobbes is also personally going to visit Galileo with one of his tutees that he takes with him, and spends a while talking and learning from Galileo. And I have my quiz question for today, by the way, is who was more influenced by Galileo, Descartes or Hobbes? Thomas Hobbes. Here's Thomas Hobbes. We'll focus more on Hobbes on Wednesday. Hobbes is actually older than Descartes and lived longer than Descartes. So Descartes had a very short life, relatively speaking. And everyone blames Queen Christina for it, because Descartes was doing well, and Queen Christina of Sweden invited, it's almost an order when it comes from the Queen, to order Descartes to come to spend time with her, teaching her philosophy. And as a result, he did go to spend time with Queen Christina, and while he was there that year, he ended up catching pneumonia from the cold. Everyone says it's from the cold Swedish winters. Plus, Queen Christina needed him to come to her palace at like 5 in the morning for the for the opportunity to study with him. And he, Descartes, spent his life sleeping late. And as a result, the shock, I suppose, everyone believes this, at least, and blames Queen Christina's invitation and the requirements that she set on him for him catching pneumonia and dying. And by the way, it's kind of fun. His body was shipped back to France, but en route, someone stole the head. And that's weird, but why? Well, because these were relics of someone who was famous, and obviously someone could sell it. And here's the interesting thing. France eventually believed they got the head back, and you could even go and see the head. Descartes' skull. It's in the Museum of Humanity, if you're in Paris. I don't know what's written all over it, but somebody wrote stuff all over it. So they believe that's Descartes' skull. By the way, his body is buried in Saint-Germain-des-Prés. Descartes. Body. Here it is. So this middle panel here, it's in a church, Saint Germain de Prés, which means Saint Germain of the Fields. And so that's where his body is. But notice his skull is in the museum over here. And it's funny because what we'll see, Descartes believed that the mind and the body were separate. Mind-body dualism, Descartes. And obviously, in actual fact, his mind is in one place and his body's in another. Ha ha ha. That could be funny. I guess I have to tell it better than I did. So that's interesting. Could be funny. Did I say anything about Leonardo? Leonardo is another scientist. He's not only famous for the painting the Mona Lisa, right? Everyone's heard of the painting the Mona Lisa. People keep throwing paint and stuff at it in the Louvre. There's actually two copies, by the way. He was painting two versions of it. One of them is in the Prada Museum in Madrid, and the other one is in the Louvre. And you could tell they're different. It's the same woman, same face, but different background. And Da Vinci painted them both. In fact, he was painting that picture quite a long period of time in his life. He had it with him when he died, because he was still not happy with it. And the puzzle about the Mona Lisa, I don't know, should I look down through here and see if the Mona Lisa's probably. I have this one in my office, actually. This one you can see in the United States. I believe that's the only one. Notice it's in the National Gallery of Art, and you could go there, and what's neat about it is they have the painting on the one side, and they have it mounted in a way that it's so you could look behind it and see the back of it under glass as well, and that's because it has a big signature of Da Vinci in the back. But that one's the only one that's Da Vinci in the United States as far as I know, unless there's going to be opportunities to have some come and visit for a while. Where is Mona? Hello, Mona. There she is. So this is the one that's in the Louvre, and the biggest puzzle, in fact, there's all kinds of specials about trying to figure out why is it that her face is so mysterious. She's smiling with the left side of her face in her eye, but not with her mouth, and the mouth is smiling on the right side, but not her eye. Does that make sense? I have it backwards. But in any case, it's puzzling. It also seems like her eyes follow you around, so I'm thinking, good test. Everybody, does it look like she's looking right at you, even though you're scattered all over the room? Lots of interesting puzzles. Da Vinci's technique was called smoky in Italian. What's smoky in Italian? Our Italian isn't here today. I can ask her. Shoot. Well, I forget what it is, but spafuma or some. But in any case, what it means is there's no clear lines on the face. It all blurs. Everything blurs, which is actually more like real faces. You don't really have a clear line unless you're wearing lipstick like Taylor Swift. Right, and then you could, you can see exactly where she put the lipstick, etc. But it's fascinating. All kinds of things, new, I forget exactly what year, but new perspective on painting is developed and so on. And they're also learning more about the body. Da Vinci is one. Da Vinci is doing his own dissections of bodies and then drawing very carefully what he finds. Big difference from what was previously known, because no one had apparently done that. The drawings of bodies for medical purposes were